Welcome to Social Capital Expert, a show where we discover the value of social capital and how cultivating strategic relationships is critical to our success. In each episode, your host, Sarah Frances McDaniel, will explore the stories of fascinating people from all over the world to better understand how their ability to build relationships has led to their success. We will uncover tips, tricks, and practical ways that you too can become a social capital expert. Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have our special guest, my friend, Matt Stewart. Thanks for being with us today, Matt.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm honored and flattered that you thought of me.
Oh my gosh. You'll see by the end of this, there's no one else I would want to have on this podcast when it comes to social capital but Matt. So Matt, before we get to what you do today and kind of where you are and what you're involved in today, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Maybe where you're from, where you started?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I grew up in a really rural town in southeastern Pennsylvania. I'm the oldest of four. I have two brothers and a little sister. Amazing parents that were a huge impact and influence in my life still. And as far as growing up in a really rural town, like I wasn't really exposed to like this whole thing that we're talking about today, which is social capital and the importance of relationships. And I was always very introverted. I was the kid that in preschool and kindergarten, I would hide underneath the desk while the kids all participated in whatever activity the teacher had going on. So I was very shy and introverted.
Wow, I would never have guessed that.
Oh my gosh. And even to this day, I'm somewhat that way. But now I found that I get so much energy and stuff from being around other people. I certainly need like the time to recharge and slow down, but I still get a lot of energy from being around people, particularly like you, Sarah, who just exude positivity and confidence and whatnot. So so I grew up there. I went to college. One of the best things that I did was go away to college because I needed that kind of space to be on my own and explore and go on adventures and stuff like that without kind of the guidance of other people in my life. So went to school. Coastal Carolina University was the name of the university, and during that time frame, I found an internship at an opportunity at a country club in Colorado here, Lakewood Country Club, and came out here with my brother, my best friend, for a summer, and that's ultimately what brought me to Colorado, and couldn't be more grateful for that. So
awesome. So what did you study in college?
I studied marketing. I have a bachelor's degree in marketing, and then through the PGA of America, they have a partnership with the university I went to become a golf professional. So unfortunately, I was not the person you'd see on TV golfing, but I became a club pro, and I earned my Class A membership or status through the PGA of America while subsequently going to school. So,
they say more business is done on the golf course than in conference room. So that probably has helped in other ways as we climb towards your future. So okay, so you went to college for marketing, came out to Colorado to take this golf internship. Then what?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, golf is my passion, something that I love to do, and it still is a huge part of my life. And I ended up coming out here for the summer for that internship that I mentioned. And the Cherry Hills Country Club, which is where I ended up working next, was hosting the U.S. Women's Open in 2005. And so I'm like, well, if I want to work in Colorado and be in the golf business, Cherry Hills is the place for me to be. And so during that, I ended up like having a great relationship. This is, I think, plays in the social capital thing. I had a great relationship with one of the other people who worked at the other club I was at, and they put me in touch with one of the pros at Cherry Hills, and they hired me without an interview thanks to their recommendation, which was super cool.
Wow. So
then I came back to Cherry Hills after I graduated in 2005 and spent 6 years there as one of the golf pros, and got to meet some of the most interesting and fascinating people in Colorado there.
Cherry Hills, that is an interesting place to meet people, I imagine. Okay, so then you kind of took a leap. After your Cherry Hills Pro Day, what happened then?
Yeah, I mean, golf taught me, being in the golf business taught me a lot about relationships, a lot about business. Like I mentioned earlier, growing up in a small town, I wasn't exposed to an economy or what business was like. And so being at Cherry Hills, I got to see how economy worked, or what jobs were out there, and what having freedom in your time looked like, that type of thing. And so I ended up becoming, after Cherry Hills, I was the head pro at a country club in northern Colorado for a year. And they were going through some difficult times. They just transitioned from being member owned to being private equity owned.
Okay.
And this is my first experience with how the quality of your life is determined by the quality, or excuse me, how the quality of your relationships are determined by the quality of your life. And I think I probably butchered that a little bit, but I think the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life is what I meant to say. And during my time there, the people were just, the owners were just not good people, didn't have a lot of integrity, and I basically ended up resigning and taking several months off to figure out what I wanted to do next.
Wow.
And really powerful, transformative time in my life, because golf had always been what I'd known and loved.
Right.
And to make that leap and transition into a career in finance was really difficult for me.
Did you decide you were definitely going to finance?
You know,
I mean, how did that, like, how did you go from golf marketing to golf pro to finance?
Yeah. Marketing was just kind of like something that I chose as part of the curriculum, as part of my bachelor's. Golf was always what I at the time wanted to do because I didn't really know any better. But honestly, I didn't really know much better.
Awesome.
But you know, taking that time off, one of the things that I always loved, aside from golf, learning about was finance. And I figured, well, if I can use something that I love on a daily basis, I think that'll help me, you know, always continuously improve and get better.
Right.
And I can take that and use that to propel my career and advance my business. And then also, like, with golf, you learn a lot about service and relationships. And I think that's one of the big things I took away when I was a kid. You know, I'd be 15 years old playing golf with someone who's 55 or 60 and having, you know, learning from them and being in those situations. So I would learn to communicate, and I felt comfortable talking to older people through my time in golf, and also learned just a lot about service. And one of the things I remember from one of the general managers that I used to work for was his slogan was create positive, memorable experiences. And I think if you have that perspective, no matter what you're doing in your life, whether it's in your business or in your friend group or with your spouse or whatnot, try to always make their experience as memorable and positive as possible, and that will, I think, serve you well.
Isn't that interesting experience? And I want to get back to where you know, your finance journey. But to talk a little bit about experience, I think your mentor was sort of a bit even before his time. When you look at where things are going now, experience seems to be the driving factor in all kinds of places that maybe it wasn't before. When you look at hotel experiences, look at you know, amenities and experiences in apartment communities, and all of these things, all of this focus is on creating positive, memorable experiences that are unique and authentic, and all of that. And so now I know you, and I've spent, you know, I've known you now, what, 7 or 8 years, yeah. And you definitely took that advice to heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's really important to me. And Jim Carrey has a quote: "The most valuable currency you have, or the fact you have in others, is the most valuable currency that you have." And I think, you know, I get a lot of energy and feel good about it. People when I'm around them and they're giving me that experience, so I want to provide that back. But golf taught that. I mean, you would, in the golf business, you know, yeah, I was a golf pro, but my job was literally to do anything for them. Like, whatever they wanted, my job was to just make that happen. Whether it was getting them a sandwich or cleaning their golf clubs or greeting their guests, whatever it was, like, I would do. I felt like I was humble enough, and no job was too little, I guess, to take on. But as long as it made their experience better, it made their day better, because you never know, like, what people are going through and the crap they're dealing with, and if you can make that one little change, and it can really have a positive influence or impact on them. Wow, that's great, and that's huge. So thank you for sharing. And now take us back to your journey. Okay, so you decided, I think I'm going to finance. Now what? Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I'd always enjoyed learning about finance. My dad is a huge role model influence in my life. Aside from golf, his biggest passion and hobby is, you know, reading about finance. And I remember sitting down and looking at the Wall Street Journal with him when I was a kid, and he helped me start a Roth IRA when I was really young, and just things like that were really influential to me. And I'm like, well, I feel very blessed that was something that I was taught, or I was given that experience, and most people that I have met with and come across never had that. And so I'm like, well, I felt like I could make an impact helping people with that stuff, and it was something that, again, that I love learning about. And so I think when you marry those two things, you love learning about it, and it can provide an impact. I think that's when there's a lot of magic that can happen. I think so many people maybe follow their passion, but I think too when you start doing something for money, it can change that.
Yeah.
And golf was my experience in that. It changed when I did it for money. It changed it. I didn't enjoy it as much. I enjoy golf way more now than I did when I was working in the business. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, you touched on just some great things there, either as well. But you know, when you marry, you know, one of the questions that I usually ask is where people find their passion. And one of the interesting things is sometimes I think it's hard when we get in a place where we're kind of stuck to find our passion. And so you've just kind of given us a little nugget about how you can really find a motivating and fulfilling and purposeful place by taking something that has an impact on other people and marrying it with something that you care about, right?
Yeah.
And creating this like space that provides enthusiasm and creativity and all of that. So you found this place that you wanted to have impact and make a difference, and that you were also really interested and passionate about. And so what did you do with that?
Well, I think so. Like nowadays, I think so many people are so far removed from the impact they make. I think what I'm very fortunate to have in my career and my job is that I see firsthand the impact that I get to make, and I get to sit down face to face with people and have conversations about things that are really important to them. And so I think that's what's helped me thrive, I guess, in my career. And it's not necessarily about being the biggest or the best. It's just about, you know, for me, I just want to have the deepest and most meaningful relationships. And for me personally, I just get a lot of fulfillment out of that. And that allows me to want to continue to get better, which then helps me serve the people that I'm working for in a better way.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Matt is a financial advisor, and you probably can explain what you do much more proficiently and well than I can. But in our experience, you know, when we met several years ago, I was in an interesting place. I felt very violated and just exposed financially through a divorce that I had gone through, and it was like, I'm not talking to anyone about my finances ever again, and let alone a stranger. And so I think it's interesting. That's part of why I really wanted you on this show, is that you have a career path that requires people to be vulnerable before you and trust you, and yet you build these relationships in such a different way than most people that I've ever met in your industry. When I first, you know, when we first met, I'm like, not another financial advisor. I'm not talking to any more of those guys, you know? And part of that is because they have kind of a big request without always taking the time to build that relationship and that trust. And you know, and I realized after I got to know you, we met, and then you connected me. You heard when we met, you heard what I said, and then you quickly were making introductions to some of the most valuable people in my network. In fact, several of the guests on this show already have been people that you introduced me to. And so so thank you for that.
Of course, yeah.
And you know, here we were 2 years into our relationship, and I realized I really hadn't done anything for you. And you had consistently for 2 years, I hadn't. And for 2 years, you had just gone out of your way to make very effective and meaningful connections for me, beneficial to me. And so that was really the turning point for me in regarding our relationship. And I finally said, you know, this is a guy who is about giving more than he's about getting. And he's done several things for me over the course of years without any expectation or any pressure about anything else. This is the kind of person I'm okay opening this very private piece of my life to. And so I don't take that lightly, and it's huge as far as I'm concerned. And it's part of where I really believe that this social capital topic hits home, is in being able to take the time and to build trust. And you really are a master and really walk that talk. So I would just love for you to just sort of share some of your philosophy on building social capital.
Yeah, of course. You know, I think part of it is like one of my values is curiosity, and I, for whatever reason, just I don't like talking very much, I guess, too, but I love listening, and I love like trying to ask good questions and get to know people. And so I think one of the core tenets for me of building social capital is curiosity. And I'll come back to that in a second, but I think initially I didn't understand the importance of social capital. Like when I was younger, I didn't understand, like I just didn't use it, right? I didn't build rapport. Like one of my biggest regrets was when I was in college, I had a pretty tight group of friends, but I didn't really expand outside of that. I never took the time to go visit professors or the dean or people that could have really had a profound impact in my life,
right,
in my career. And I look back on that with a lot of regret. And really, it wasn't until I left the golf business and got into a career or business that I was required to go out and create my own income and build it on my own that I really recognized the value of that. And so I think one of the things is serendipity in the sense of like trying to just put yourself in an environment where you can meet good people, and you never know who you're gonna come across next who can change the trajectory of your life. And you're certainly one of those, Sarah, to me.
Well,
you're some of those people to me, Sarah. So thank you. So serendipity is one of them, and I think you'll know when you get around people, you know, are they someone that you want to hang out with and be around it. And I had that feeling with you. It was like, I want to help Sarah out because I just like know she just exudes this confidence and just really positive energy. And I'm like, it's easy to make introductions for people when they're as sweet and kind and caring as you are. And so I think putting yourself in the position to meet great people is the first step. And then from that point, once you meet them, to be really curious about their life and what their needs are. And it's really easy, I think, for people to ask you for help. But if you can anticipate people's needs and then somehow deliver on that, like an example would be, I have a close friend, and being a golfer, like this is near and dear to my heart. But I could tell he'd call me. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to Arizona, and I want to play golf somewhere. Where would you suggest? I'm staying at this place." And so I did a little bit of research, called some friends, and I could tell he was super busy. He was stressed. He's like, "What should I do? Let's get the deadline." And so I just called and I made a tee time for him. I gave him my credit card. I paid for it and just said, "Hey, go have a great time." And like I try to anticipate their needs and what would make them, appreciative and take stress off their lives. So I think finding a way to add value once you're curious is the next step in all this. Those for me were some of the core tenets. And there's a couple more, but really at the heart of it was serendipity, curiosity, and trying to find a way to be a servant leader. Like really going out of your way to make other people's lives easier. And I think when you do that, it builds trust. And then ultimately, when you do that, people want to help you back.
Yeah.
And selfishly, I probably get more out of it than they do because I get fulfillment from it. So.
And one thing is really, really cool about how you do things, Matt, and being involved in your network is that there's a definite commonality about the people that you connect with and then that you connect me with. These people, there's a common sense of wanting to do something for one another, wanting to come into this relationship with the expectation of adding value. And I never leave one of the meetings of people that you've introduced me to without that person saying to me, "So how can I help you? What can I do to help you?" Not once. And what else is really interesting about having been in your network and watching how you network and how you probably have some of the most steadfast, deepest social capital that I've ever seen. Anywhere I go, and I'm talking to people, there's a good chance someone in that group in this city, in Denver, Colorado, knows you. And your reputation precedes you. And when they're in this moment where they're talking to someone who also knows you, they reflect a lot of your same tendencies as far as asking if they can help, how they can integrate, who it would be beneficial for you to be connected to. How could I make a better introduction for you to someone? That whole 6 degrees of separation. And it's really fun to be a part of that, because what else it's doing for you, whether you know it or not, is that the first few moments of those conversations when we've been introduced by someone, by you, is spent talking about you. And so this is the thing, you know, part of what I want to do with this vlog and this podcast is really give people helpful, practical things that they can try, or maybe they're already doing that they can just tweak or do differently to see some different results in building influence and building goodwill, creating social capital. And so one of those things is just, if you can, how this stuff all comes back in this giving spirit is that Matt may not be directly getting any business from introducing 2 people in his network. But when we sit down and we've come together because of his introduction, we spend our commonality in that moment is him. And so we spend the first while of our meeting talking about how awesome he is. And it's true, because you're giving to us. And so then if they aren't using him, I tell them my story about why I do. If there's a mutual agreement that we both are, then we talk about some of our favorite things and who we can help send your way, or the kinds of people. And so it's just kind of the whole process in motion when it comes to how you make connections and how you do it, and then how in the end it's creating spokespeople and salespeople that can then go and almost promote you to one another and other people. It's really cool, and I know that you totally get it. You know, there's a couple of other things I know run true, and I'd love to hear you elaborate a little bit more on. Some of that is like partnerships and gratitude, and things where you really go out of your way. Can you tell us a little bit more just about how you kind of utilize those things in building social capital?
Yeah, of course. I'll start with like gratitude and appreciation, I guess. But I think appreciation is probably the most undervalued and underutilized tool for building relationships. Like, I genuinely mean that. Like, it's not used enough. And I think you get the best out of people when they feel good about you. And if you're willing to give a compliment or show your appreciation, gratitude to them, they're gonna probably show it back. And in some capacity, you know, like whether it's, you know, writing them a note out of the blue, like just sending like a note for no specific purpose, or you know, dropping something off at their work just as a little thank you, or anything you do to writing a LinkedIn post, a recommendation, or just something about them. People are really, I think, drawn to that, and you know, are willing to then show their appreciation back. And to your point, the more top of mind you are, right, the more I think you're going to be able to receive. Not that you're doing it to receive, hopefully. If you're doing it to receive, then
that's where you start.
Yeah, you have the wrong mindset.
Yeah, we've got an issue.
Yeah, do it with the service mindset and don't expect anything in return, and lo and behold, you get 10x in return, whether it's financially or more importantly, if it's just like fulfillment and great relationships. And I think part of what makes it easier for me is, like, I truly believe that aside from your health, your social capital is the most important thing that you have. Like, absolutely. Your relationship, there's a lot of studies, we've talked about this in one of our talks that we've done, like, your health is dictated by your relationships. I mean, there's a study, I can go into this real quick, but there's a study that was done sort of 1938 through Harvard. They studied, I think, 268 Harvard sophomores at the time, and they followed them throughout their entire lives. And what they found was that the people that were healthiest in their 80s were the ones that had the best social relationships in their 50s. And so it wasn't about their blood pressure, it wasn't about their weight, it was who was happiest in their relationships. And so, you know, to me, it's just a part of, you know, I make it a priority, and I enjoy it, and I know it's really important to my network and I. So I think showing appreciation, writing notes and that stuff is really, really valuable to people. And
I know you and I have talked about this before. It's even simple things like, instead of saying, I appreciate that, but really like saying, I appreciate you. And sometimes it's even uncomfortable sort of to even say that. And maybe that's just me, but it's like sometimes it's easier for me to say, oh, thanks, I appreciate that. But to really say, thanks, I appreciate you, takes something from my heart to be able to do that or to give that. And it, even just doing those small adjustments can make such huge bridges almost between people. You know, another thing, Matt, that I think probably in a major way for everyone, but specifically for you with how you talk about our super private stuff. And so integrity is a big piece of that. And we've talked a little bit on the show about how it really, a lot of it starts with us. When it comes to building relationships, it's all about them, but it really starts with us. And integrity is a big piece of that. And you know, that's something that you stand very strong in. It's not a questionable place where your boundaries lie or how you feel about things. How do you feel about, you know, people looking at their integrity or even each other's integrity and what that might look like in building social capital?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's one of the other core tenets that I maybe didn't mention earlier, at least from my perspective. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's easy to be integrity when things are going well. I think it's really like what you find is how do people react when things aren't going well or things aren't ideal, and so really important to manage your behavior and that type of stuff in that way. So obviously integrity is, you know, I think it goes without saying that's super important. You know, a quick example would be, you know, I have a good friend of mine who they do a lot of real estate investment stuff, and obviously you all know what happened in the Great Recession in 2008 through kind of 2010 in real estate and what happened. And you know, I think your reputation is made in that moment. And the way this person acted during that time frame was he made sure all of his investors got paid back first before he took anything. He made sure they were ramped up communication, all this stuff, and people certainly appreciated that, and that made his integrity. Now everyone wants to invest in any deal this guy does because he was true to his behavior even in the worst of times, even when things were horrible. So you know, I think you can see pretty quickly the people that have integrity and follow through, and that's part of when I meet with people, I always try to like help them first. Like I try to like be curious, find a way I can serve them, and then I throw out and I try to help. And then I wait. I also, you know, if they mention they're going to do something for me and they don't, well then I make note of that. And maybe there's someone that I don't want in my network, so to speak, or maybe I don't go out of my way as much to help them. But I think identifying those people who have that integrity and making sure you're connecting people that have that integrity with other people is really critical, because ultimately they're a reflection on you. And if you introduce someone or you help someone in some capacity and it doesn't go well, now they maybe think negatively about you, and that obviously your reputation is the most important thing that you have.
That's
right?
a good point.
Aside from your health and that type of stuff, because that impacts your relationships. So
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good reason to be have discernment about who you connect yourself with and who you make referrals for and how some of that works out. You know, you've touched on it in some places, but can you just share with us how relationships have really been critical to your success? Yeah,
I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's the most important thing. You know, who you surround yourself. You hear the old adage, you are the average of your 5 closest friends. It was a Jim Rohn comment, and it's so true. You know, when I first, actually the person who introduced us is someone who's made a profound impact on me and how that was critical to my success. This person who I'm thinking of has probably introduced me to 300 plus people, and introduced me to people like Sarah, who's then introduced me to another 100 people and whatnot. It's just this cool snowball in this kind of cool ecosystem. But like, you know, I also think too, when you meet people, you never know like how they're going to influence your life down the road. And so being in integrity in every situation and how you act in every situation, you don't know how they can serve you or you can help them later. So, I mean, I can give you like specific examples if you want, but I think that was, there's a million instances, whether it's, you know, something to do with business or meeting someone who has helped me in my relationship with my wife, like that, you know, to me is really important, and learning from other people, particularly around the relationship with Megan, my wife, has been really powerful and transformative. So.
That's awesome, and thank you so much for sharing that. You know, one of the other core ways that you can build social capital, I know that you're big on on community and on power partners. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of how those have an impact or how you utilize that to build social capital?
Yeah, of course. You know, like I mentioned earlier, and you all know this listening, right? It's so important who you surround yourself with. And, you know, I try to surround myself with people who also believe in the power of social capital and who want to give and want to serve. So whether you're in a business development role or you're trying to find a new job or, you know, you're just looking to connect with cool people, I think finding people that have that same mindset around wanting to serve first and wanting to give are really, really important. So I try to kind of build this ecosystem of people that have those same values.
Yeah.
Right? And that like I mentioned earlier, if like they're going to represent me well when I make an introduction. And I always have that in the forefront of my mind. I want to make the person, who I get introduced to, make them look good as well.
Yeah.
And so I think building people or building a community that people have that same mindset around, you know, integrity, obviously we discussed, you know, wanting to serve first and serve others is really important. But I think, you know, if you're in any type of business development role, you can basically create your own kind of sales team. And I think if you're able to communicate what you do well, and they intimately understand what you do, and they also command, like, it's really important that they command social capital. Like if they don't have any friends or they're not very presentable, then they're probably not going to be able to help you out and
maybe
vice
not
versa.
Be a power partner.
Maybe not
one of the ones you count on to be out there for you.
Not a Sarah McDaniel.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I don't know. But yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But if they're not that, then that's a whole different story. But we were talking about the people who are.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you have to be willing to invest in them first, right? Most people, like what I found is, you know, a lot of like the power, like for me, the power partners that can help my grow that business are usually like attorneys or that type of stuff, and they're people that are usually meeting a lot of other new people. A lot of times they're very reluctant to share their network, and so I think you have to be willing to work with these power partners first and help them and almost teach them how to build social capital and teach them, because this is something it's not taught in school, right? This should be something like your finances and your physical health and your mental health. These are all things that should be taught somewhere.
Get there.
I think
we'll get there. Let's get there.
I think
teach them how to sell you, sort of.
Yeah.
Or how to represent you.
I think investing in them, learning what they need to be successful, taking the first step by serving them, and then, you know, over time they'll learn how you want to be introduced or whatnot because you do it for them. And so, you know, finding those people that command social capital as well are really critical. At least for at least in a business development role or in whatnot. And I found too that it has created more meaningful relationships and more friends than I could ever have dreamed before.
Yeah. You know, thank you for sharing. And, you know, do you really have any advice for people who are listening about how to build these kinds of relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to a lot of the things that I talked about before, you know, taking a genuine interest in people, being curious. And you know, for me, I find a lot of people that I just connect with through golf or through biking or hiking, and it's a great way to just build rapport with them and get to know them at that type of level. Yeah. So, I think you have to be willing to take the first step. I think so many people just aren't willing to do that. I don't know if I answered your question specifically, but... Yeah,
just to go for it. Your advice is to just be willing to do it.
Yeah, I think invest in people, find people that have similar interests and hobbies as you. I don't think you should just end up being a silo and only talk to those people, but those are the people that you're really going to, I think, be able to create some momentum and traction with that have that kind of same, you know, mindset and philosophy around. So, and you know, one of the things that I mentioned I wish I would have done earlier was to, you know, make a priority to, you know, meet. I didn't learn this kind of skill. This is something that I think, I didn't learn this skill until later in my life, but I think if you take this approach when you're in college or younger, or you're just getting into the business community, it can make a really profound impact and accelerate the amount of social capital you build and the relationships that you have.
Yeah. Well, and, as we kind of look at where you've come from, is there anything that you're doing today or any adventures you're on or about to take that you want to share?
Yeah. Adventure is another core value of mine. So, always doing like some fun, like hiking. Love hiking 14ers. We're hopefully doing Capitol next weekend with some buddies.
Awesome.
I think it's the most technical of the standard routes in the 14ers. So, love that type of adventure. Love biking. Love going on golf trips. The thing that I'm probably most excited about and passionate about, aside from like work and those things, is going to be I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Project Helping, and part of our mission is to create innovative ways to improve mental wellness. And so one of my good friends, Justin Kruger, he founded this nonprofit years ago. He and I worked in the golf business together. He was the Ping sales rep, and I was the hard goods buyer for Cherry Hills at the time. Became good friends, and he found out that, over the years, like he looked like he had like the perfect life, right? Had a good income, had a great family. He was always super fun and gregarious, but found out that he was struggling with depression big time, and it broke my heart to like see like a friend of mine going through that. And what I learned mostly from him is like the power of vulnerability and being open and sharing when you're going through hard times. Everyone goes through those, right? Everyone has those hard times, and having your social capital community to help you get through it is really important. And so him opening up to me was really, I feel very fortunate that happened. And ultimately he quit his job and started this nonprofit 6+ years ago, and I was one of the first board members. And we basically serve other nonprofits, and we have a program for teaching kids about mental health in high school and in middle school. We have a program for women or moms going through postpartum. We've got a bunch of other programs. And so I think one of the biggest opportunities we have as a country is to improve our outlook and how we approach mental health and stuff like that. So I'm super pumped for that, and would love to talk to anyone more about that or introduce them to Justin, or if that's something that's near and dear to their heart, or they know someone who's going through a tough time.
That's such a great cause and so timely. I mean, I don't know that any of us don't either deal with it ourselves or know someone close to us that has, mental health and situations that are challenging. So that's awesome. And we'll have all the show notes. In the show notes, we'll have all the information for how to contact Matt, how to get involved with Project Helping. And so Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I would just iterate that this is that Jim Carrey quote again. I think the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency that you have. And so, going back to the creating memorable experiences for people and serving first, I think that'll make a profound impact on your life if you look at it through that lens. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
That's all for this episode of Social Capital Expert. Please visit socialcapitalexpert.com for show notes, additional episodes, and to see who will be visiting us next on the show. Also, be sure to check out our upcoming Social Capital Mixers. These are events where we can connect in person to build social capital. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to having you join us for the next episode.